Hello and welcome to my video tutorial on Proxmox VE, which is Proxmox Virtual Environment. It is essentially software that allows you to take one physical server or machine or whatever and host multiple virtual machines on it. It's essentially a bare bones Linux environment that runs the base, and then that Linux environment virtualizes the machines on top of it. It's similar to VMware's ESXi or Citrix's Zen server. So, alright, essentially we'll go through the quick install process. The install process is going to be pretty easy. You download the bare metal ISO installer, and it's based on Debian Lenny, and it'll go through the base. The install is very simple. You just go through base install, and then you'll connect to the web page, which is this right here, and you're good to go. Essentially, when you first connect to the web page, it's going to show, uptime. Right now has been 3 days, and it'll show your machine, CPU utilization, I/O delays, physical memory, swap space, and HD space root. All stuff you don't really need unless obviously you're having issues. But essentially the big part is first go to storage, and there's a lot of ways to do storage. I decided for the time being, since I have only 2 hard drives in the actual machine, to just take and install Proxmox on one hard drive and use the entire other drive for virtual machines. Obviously the issue is with that is I can only really do 2 virtual machines that are chugging away at one time because the hard disk just can't keep up. But essentially, the storage name, I just called it local. I made it a directory essentially, so it's just a directory on there. And then it's 428, and the capacity, it's a terabyte drive, I believe, that was partitioned down. And then what you can do if you want to add more storage, add iSCSI, add NFS, add I don't like LVM, but they have that by default, I believe, LVM group. You can definitely use that. There are some advantages. I don't like it personally. And essentially, varlibvz is a directory, and the directory is on that hard drive. We're not sharing it. It allows us to store virtual disks, ISO images, OpenVZ containers, and OpenVZ templates. Alright. So let's just say for whatever reason we wanted to add a network file share. Essentially we'd name the storage server or scan the server, export it, the export, and then enable, and then we would choose contents on there. You'll notice that it doesn't have all the options that I hate that part about it, that the other one did for adding directory, because the default one hold on. The default one allows us to do OpenVZ containers, and for OpenVZ containers, if you add another directory, it won't let you do that. It won't let you do any of them that are currently used, except for ISO image, I believe, and virtual disks. The VZ dump backups you can also do, which is nice. We'll cover that a little later. So eventually I hope to have some sort of storage area network, or NAS, and use that for my storage, since that'll have 4 disks in or whatever, and that'll be able to stripe them across all disks. So the next important thing is system. This is kind of the big deal. I have 3 NetNIC cards in my server just to help with speeds. I didn't want to bottleneck it. VMBR0, that is actually my management interface. That's the 10.10.10.150 right here up top. That's the only one obviously that has this IP address. The other ones are ported to the other virtual machines. And if you go in, you can see you can set the IP address, which we don't do. Set to mask, we leave the same, auto start, and you bridge port it. And that's the thing with bridge ports. VMBR1 is ported to ETH0 on the. So what that's saying essentially is that anything that goes on Ethernet 0, which is the local Proxmox, is ported to VMBR1. So essentially, let's just say, let's go into my Windows XP. And actually, you know what? Won't let us change that, but let's say we're creating a new virtual machine. We'll go through the whole process now. And now here's the interesting part about Proxmox that a lot of other options don't have. You can do a fully virtualized or container. And what happens with the fully virtualized is it requires a lot more resources, and it can only well, actually, sorry, it does a whole lot. It requires a whole lot more resources. The thing about KVM is that it's a full virtualization. It requires a lot more resources. But if you do a container, OpenVZ, you can only emulate Linux machines. And there are a lot of weird limitations if you're using it for special use cases. But the speed and performance and everything is a lot better cost ratio for a container. But let's just go back to KVM, and then we can choose an ISO storage where we want to store the ISO, and then installation media is going to be CD-ROM, or we would be able to choose an ISO later too if we had any. Disk storage, and then disk storage is also going to be local directory. Disk space, we can choose name, memory, the ID, cluster node. Proxmox can be clustered, so there can be 4 servers, and you can move the virtual machines from server to server. Start at boot is pretty simple. When the server boots, does it start? Image format. This can be raw, VMDK, which is VMware's thing, QCOW, which is QEMU, I believe, which I think that's actually supposedly a better one. I haven't used it myself, I don't think. Disk type, ID, SCSI, VirtIO, which is supposedly better performance, but has some drawbacks. Guest types. This allows you to choose Linux, XP, etc., etc. And then here's the bridge type. You can choose any, if you want to bridge it to a VMBR 1 or 2 or 0, you can choose it there, or you can use it to NAT, which means it'll just get a regular. And the reason I have multiple NICs, well, one of the reasons besides load bearing, which you can actually set up, I don't technically even have load bearing per se, but I have 2 machines in there, and both of them are on separate networks. One's on my internal, one's on my external. So that was needed. I needed to have more than one card. And then migrate is just if you want to migrate it from server to server. And currently, as you can see, I have 2 machines running, both of them up for 3 days. That's when I last rebooted my server due to some issues I've been having that I'll explain. But and there is DMZ. That's my web server and such not. Windows XP, that's my work machine. I have all my work programs on there that I need. And one of the nice things about this is you pop into here, and then you can hit Open VNC Console, and you're in that machine right there. You know, and this is my work machine, but you can see that it's pretty useful because technically I can go anywhere in the world and connect right back to this machine. The redraw and stuff is not exactly awesome, as you can tell. It depends, of course, on what your internet speed is and all that, but it does take a while for redraw depending on those. But it still is quite useful. Alright. The next cool thing about this is appliance templates. OpenVZ templates. Essentially, you can, my local one, I have my Debian 6.0 standard on there already. But you can download templates. Let's say you want a machine, a virtual machine with CentOS 5. You just download it, and then you can essentially boot up a virtual machine, and there it is, CentOS. It's already up and running. And they already have some set up for MediaWiki, WordPress, Drupal, and then they have their own Proxmox Mail Gateway and Cyan Secure Web. So these are very, very cool, very, very cool things. ISO images, if you want to choose that.